Welcome back into the Blacksburg Buzz. Today, we're finally getting around to a little bit more Virginia Tech basketball. Hokies started the season 3-1 so far this year, and the men are doing pretty well. 3-0 at home, then falling at Penn State on the road in that tournament. So, not a bad start to the season. Definitely a couple of rocky things, some things to improve on, but you scrounge up 3 wins and you're not in a terrible position to start the year. So before we break down these games, let's talk about our video sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball to the NHL, UFC, and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, Hokies starting 3-0, then falling to Penn State. First game of the season against Delaware State, got the win 83-60. Not an amazing shooting performance, but it could definitely get worse. And hint, hint, it will get worse. We'll get to that in a minute. Pretty big win though, and definitely some fun moments overall. Toby Lawal had a really good first game with Virginia Tech. 23 points on the day. And he's just so fun to watch with that bounce, with that raw athleticism. It's really outrageous. He's not a guy that we see on Virginia Tech's team all too often. Generally, not the just crazy athletic guards and forwards. It's not really where they find themselves all too often. But my goodness, Toby Lawal is a highlight reel in the making on the floor. He's just got crazy hops. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this season he hit his head on the rim. Just outrageous. He's a freak athlete, and he's going to be a lot of fun to watch this season. I really think he's going to make this season very entertaining, and I'm really curious to see how he performs once the tougher opponents come to town and just how his consistency is and the overall game develops. Because while he is a really crazy athlete, we know that he was kind of seen as this like raw talent where needed a little bit development, needed some polishing around the edges, but he's definitely got a lot of tools to make things interesting. Poteet had a good game as well, 14 points, and Jaden Young had 13. So nice to see those two guys doing well. Jaden Young had a pretty solid end to last season. You could really see him starting to come along and pick things up over the course of the season. And then by the end, he was playing some good minutes, having a couple good games, and just starting off the season right for him. Poteet, love to see him getting involved, especially in the scoring. I think that's one area where Tech probably could have benefited a little bit more last season. They did have a lot of other options, and I know that Poteet wasn't really, the first option when it came to points down low. But I think the combo of him being a good defender and just being really consistent and reliable, I think he should have been rewarded for that a little bit more often. Um, that being said, I'm not a basketball coach, of course. Then after Delaware State, the Hokies faced off with South Carolina upstate, took that game 93-74, and it was a rocky start. 16-2, Hokies went down in the first half. A really bad look in some of these out of conference play games where, you kind of treat them as a little bit of like a warm up getting into the season. You don't want to be down 14 points at any point in this game, and that's a really rough way to start things off. Tech somehow finished with the best shooting performance through the first 4 games, 50% from the floor and 38% from three. So, not a bad day at all. It's not fantastic, but certainly not something to shy away from. And, you know, it's good to see a bounce back after such a slow start in this game and, working yourself back into it, being confident in the shot. And sometimes you just got to see if you go through first. So Tech worked themselves back into this game, ultimately won by 19. Lowest turnover game of the season so far as well, just 7 for the team, which isn't a bad number at all. There's some really high turnover games so far this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with, some young guard play, a lot of young guys and new guys getting really significant minutes so far, and just trying to mesh the team. You're going to see a lot of turnovers early in the season. Hopefully, that can kind of work itself out with a little bit more experience, a little bit more cohesion, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Although South Carolina Upstate, just 7 turnovers for the Hokies in that game, so not bad. Poteet and Rex led the team with 19 points each, and then Tyler Johnson, 16. The freshman, that's really good to see. I think he's going to be a big addition to this team and probably be one of the more reliable guys off the bench, I would hope. I'm pretty high on Tyler Johnson. I think he's going to be really good down the stretch. Tech's going to have to retain him over the next few seasons, but I think he could develop into a really good player for them. So overall, tough game, not where you wanted to be. Tech, really made it a lot harder on themselves than they probably needed to. And this game is really where I started to worry about the future of this season and how the Hokies are going to look against, some really good opponents. The ACC's got some great basketball teams. When you got to play the Dukes of the world, that's going to be a concerning weekend, I think, for Tech. It's always tough against Duke, but just so far, I'm a bit worried about, when the best teams that the Hokies are going to face on their schedule show up. I'm not sure how they're going to match up, and I'm not too confident that it's going to go all too well for Virginia Tech overall. Just some rough shooting games so far, a lot of turnovers, and a few really important things to worry about, I think. If they can address those issues, might be okay. You never know what happens. Cassell, it's got some magic to it, that's for sure. But until those issues are addressed and proven on the floor, definitely something to be concerned about. Moving on to game 3, Winthrop, 58-52. Tech takes it. Jaden Schutt, great game from him. 17 points, 5 threes, and Lawal had 10 points as well. And this is the shooting game I'm talking about. I mean, atrocious. 33% from the floor and about 27.5 from three is unbearingly bad. I really can't believe Virginia Tech won this game shooting that poorly. How do you shoot 25% and 12.5% from three in a half? I don't know how that's possible. But really bad. This is a concerning game, I would say for sure. Winthrop, definitely not the worst team on the schedule. I think they're a pretty solid team, but you should not be in that position. Um, Virginia Tech just should not be in that position at this game. Really, really bad shooting, which is a cause for concern. I thought shooting was going to be one of the better aspects of this Hokies team. I mean, Jaden Schutt was one of the big additions, one of the guys who I think is really going to be that leader of this group. And he had a great game, but overall, everyone else not find the net. Tech honestly got lucky that somehow Winthrop was even colder shooting the basketball, 34.5% from the floor and about 15.5% from three for the game. Winthrop had single digit 3-point percentage in the second half. Single digit. This might be the ugliest combined box score that I've ever seen. It is not one to admire, that's for sure. The shooting was not there overall. I don't know what it was. Maybe some lights went out, but my goodness, really rough day. Everyone was off, and hopefully that's not something that continues this year because winning one game shooting 33% is impressive, but you're not going to win many more. Virginia Tech definitely needs to do a lot better for the rest of the season, or else it's going to be a long one. And then we go to the Penn State game, 64-86. The Nittany Lions took it. Not pretty. Another bad shooting game. This was concerning probably from the start of the season, honestly. You saw some bright spots, but once again, it's when you're playing the better teams, how are you going to fare? And Virginia Tech just not at that point yet this season. Shot just under 28% from three, 44% from the field. So definitely not great, especially from three. You want to be a lot higher than that. And what really killed him was the turnovers. 24 turnovers for the Hokies. I mean, Penn State had 16 steals as a team. That's ridiculous. It led to 28 points for Penn State. You knock out just a couple of those, and all of a sudden you're looking at a completely different game. If you cut that 24 turnover margin, if you cut down those 24 turnovers down to like 15, which probably shaves at least 8 to 10, maybe even 15 points off of the turnover points for Penn State, completely different game. All of a sudden, you're right there in it. So definitely something to worry about. 24 turnovers is completely unacceptable. Penn State didn't even shoot that crazy well either. 36% from three, 51% from the floor. Definitely a pretty solid night, but nothing like out of the ordinary, nothing amazing. Poteet had 15 points for Tech. And, takeaways from this game, the team is just so new, and they don't have that experienced point guard that they expected to have coming into the season. I mean, Ivy Curry originally recruited and then, decided to go somewhere else, and Miller as well. With that whole situation, we still don't really have any information on it. Nothing official, at least. There's a lot of rumors going around, but nothing official from the team. I haven't read anything further on the situation with Temple, so you can kind of take your guesses, but nothing for certain. But not having that experienced point guard is definitely hurting them some. I think it would make a big difference with the group, but no matter who you've got on the team, you just can't win games shooting like this. You can't win them regularly. And turning the ball over, that's got to get cut down. You need to keep that way lower. 24 is not going to cut it in ACC play against, honestly, I don't think any school. So some other takeaways, the turnovers, the shooting. Obviously, it's a new team, and you got to get moving with each other. You got to build that cohesion, but you need to get doing that soon. It takes time, but with the turnovers and the shooting, Those are two things that should hopefully follow that teamwork aspect around. Um, just having the sense of where guys are, what they're going to do, lead to a few more assists, and then, the turnovers, being comfortable with each other, making solid passes, having confidence in the other guys around you. Definitely a few big things that should help turn that around a little bit. And then just, getting warmed up into the season, getting some more reps. Hopefully, these things take a turn for the right direction. This team is going to have a lot of fun moments, but the good teams might be a problem with the turnovers, with the shooting. They're just so new. We don't really know what to expect from this group, but through 4 games, it looks like it might be a tough season once, the really good teams come around. But one thing that I do really like is the reliance on Poteet. He's had a couple big games, and he's been rock solid for the Hokies for a couple seasons now. He just wasn't a super big feature of the offense, but he does bring a good mix of solid defense and that post presence that sometimes Virginia Tech has been lacking in recent years. So I'm really happy to see him back after considering his options last year, figuring out what to do. But it looks like it's paying off. He's having a good start to the year, and I think he should be a key piece down low. He's a good player, and the consistency is so big with him. You know what you're getting out of Poteet. You're probably getting that like 15 to 20 points, maybe. Some good defense, a few other stats here and there, but just overall being that solid, consistent option, I think that's going to be big for this group. A group that so far hasn't had a lot of consistency. And, having one guy who has been with Mike Young for a couple of seasons, he's had some really reliable play out there for Virginia Tech. I'm really happy to see him performing well, and I think getting a little bit more involved than he was last season.